Agyanitimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Guruchandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Advapayano Vidhakatara Ajuhava Putveti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptasta Kamari Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vinam Iti Vikyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we're going to continue hearing the beautiful Sri Bhajan Rahasya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And we begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Sto Tatsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj and our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga. So, we've been hearing from the second chapter, second yam, all about an art and a vriti, right? And the last class we gave didn't record, so I'm just going to give a quick recap. And that was text 23. And that was the 10 offenses to the holy name described in the Padma Purana, right? And those we have to know, we have to study, we have to diligently think about overcoming them. Because offenses to the holy name done out of complete ignorance and unconsciousness, like mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Ajamil, that is a kind of namabhas. But when one knows something of the tattva of the holy name, then there's a greater degree of responsibility when it comes to chanting. Of course, there's also a greater opportunity as well, because then one can consciously attempt to align one's mood, one's intent, develop one's affection and love. But we have to know these offenses. So we'll just read them quickly. And then, number one, to criticize the devotees of Bhagavan is a grievous offense to the holy name. How can Sri Nam Prabhu tolerate criticism of those great souls who are deeply devoted to him and who spread his glories throughout the world? Therefore, the first offense is criticism of sadhus and devotees. And this is the most serious of them all. There are a few that are kind of up there in the hierarchy of offense, but this is the most serious. Yeah, very little leeway here. Number two, in this world, a person who by mundane intelligence distinguishes between the all-auspicious, transcendental holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Vishnu, and the possessor of the holy name, Nami Vishnu, considering them to be independent of or different from him, as is the case with material objects, commits an offense against the holy name. Furthermore, one who thinks that Lord Shiva and other demigods are independent of Vishnu or similar to Vishnu certainly commits nam aparadha. In other words, if you think there's a difference between Sri Nam and his qualities, his name, etc., you're not understanding the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord himself, right? And the nature of absolute truth. And therefore, you're minimizing those glories, right? You're taking them basically to be mundane. And also to equate the demigods to Lord Vishnu, this idea of many controllers, Bahu Ishvaravad, right? Again, inappropriate. At the same time, one is enjoined not to disrespect the demigods, who are empowered representatives, but not to confuse the tattva. Number 3, Gurur Avagya, to disregard the guru who is established in all the truths regarding the holy name, considering him to be an ordinary man possessing a perishable body composed of material elements. This is related to verse 1. This Mahabhagavat cannot be misunderstood. Even though with our eyes we see them like us as ordinary people. What was I listening to? I was listening to, lecture on Bhajan Rahasya, the different select verses of Sanatana Goswami and Srila Narayan Maharaj, was speaking that during the time of Krishna, even Krishna himself was misunderstood to be an ordinary person by most people, especially by persons like Duryodhana, Jarasandha, and others. Even though they had regular dealings with him, they thought him to be just one of them, perhaps very powerful, but an ordinary person. So Guru, most dear to Sri Krishna, should not in any way consider him to be ordinary, right? Even though he may come to our platform, it appears, to interact, to encourage, to teach, and even to accept difficulty in this world, again to teach, never consider him ordinary. 4, Shruti Shastra Nindanam, to find fault with the Vedas, the eternal Puranas, and other scriptures. All the Vedas and Upanishads illuminate the glories of the holy name. To find fault with the mantras in which the holy name is glorified is Nam Aparadha. Due to misinformation, some people neglect the Shruti mantras in which the glories of Nam are indicated and give more honor to other instructions of the Shrutis. This is also Nam Aparadha. Right. We're not going to go into detail on these because we did this before, but we're touching. If you really want to go into detail, you can go to Jaiva Dharma, a chapter called Nam Tattva, and all this is there and described much, much more. It's worthy to read this and to contemplate these conceptions, because we really have to go deep into our faith in Sri Nam and those associating with Sri Nam. Sri Nam is Krishna himself, and those who are dear to Sri Nam, like his Dham, his devotees, like his Guru, those who come as Guru, Tulsi, Jamuna, Vrindavan, so many things. The deity, who is Krishna himself, our deity seva, all of these things. Right? So, Tatarta Vada, to consider the glories of Harinam to be exaggerated. The scriptures state that all of Bhagavan's potencies are contained within his name, and that the holy name is completely transcendental, and therefore capable of destroying one's bondage to the material world. All these glories of the holy name are the supreme truth. One should never associate with those who have no faith in them, and who say that Shastra exaggerates the glories of the holy name. If such an unfaithful person appears before one's eyes, one should take bath, still wearing the clothes he has on. This is the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right. And there are so many stories in the Vedic scripture to teach the glories of that holy name. We mentioned the other day in that class the story of Hanuman kicking that soul who was so busy with his business instructed by Narad to chant. The only time he said he had to chant when he wasn't doing things is when he's passing stool. And so Narad said, then chant then. Hanuman came upon him doing that. He thought, oh, this is so offensive. Kicked him, and then found out that Ram had taken the burden, the pain of that kick himself, right? Because the man had been chanting with faith under the direction of Narad, right? So, and many other stories, Ajamil, so many about the power of the holy name. Read these and develop a sense of wonder and great appreciation for this Sri Nam. And Hari Namni Kalpanam, to consider Bhagavan's name to be imaginary. Mayavadis and materialistic Karmavadis consider Brahman, which is without name and form, to be the supreme truth. And they say that the rishis manufactured names like Ram and Krishna, thinking such names would perfect their activities. These people are nam aparadhis, right? This is not some temporary imaginary conception, because they think all the instructions in the Vedas are ultimately to be rejected when we merge into Brahman and become one, because all of this is imaginary. So any process that we take up is to be discarded ultimately. Even the worship of Bhagavan himself in the form of the deity, like the Panchopasakas do, that's also to be given up. The name of Hari is not imaginary. It is eternal and transcendental. It only manifests upon the transcendental senses and only through bhakti, right? Atak Sri Krishna namadi na bhavad grayam indriyai, right? Sevan mukhe hi jivada swayam eva smarachado. By bhakti, the senses will be purified and the transcendental name will manifest. This is the teaching given by the bona fide guru and Shastra. Therefore, one should acknowledge that the glories of Harinam are the supreme truth. One who considers these glories to be imaginary will never be able to receive the mercy of the holy name. All right. How can you have honor, respect, love for Sri Krishna, for Sri Nam, considering it to be imaginary, temporary? No, you have to be immersed in Nam Tattva. Number 7, a very serious one here. One who has a tendency to commit sinful and material activities on the strength of the holy name cannot be purified, even if he performs superficial yoga processes such as yam, niyam, dhyan, or dharana. This is certain. You can't use the holy name in a very callous way, cavalier way. Oh, I'm committing sin, no problem. I'll just chant some and I'll be purified. Then you don't get it. The holy name has to be chanted with humility and regret and remorse for our weakness. We are all coming short of the glory of God. And what does the Bible say? Something like that. All who, have all sinned, we've all fallen short of the glory of God. But that's not an excuse to deliberately fall short, continually fall short without additional effort. Yeah, that humility and recognition should be there, but the endeavor to go beyond those limitations, which can be done if we are strengthened and purified by that holy name. But don't misuse the holy name in that cavalier way, right? Then your mood is not correct. So you're not approaching Nam in the proper way. We want to approach Sri Nam in a mood of humble supplication, humble service, right? Not to use Sri Nam for our own selfish purposes. So, number 8, to consider religiosity, vows, renunciation, fire sacrifice, and other ordinary pious activities to be equal with or comparable to the transcendental name of Bhagavan is a sign of inattentiveness and carelessness, and thus an offense. In other words, so many of the activities that exist within the context of Varnashram, which are meant for regulation and gradual purification of the living entity with, deep bodily identification, deep tendency to commit, sin. But these things will purify the sin to some extent, but they won't purify the root desire to perform these activities, right? And they should never be considered to be comparable to the holy name. Never. I remember many times in our preaching, we do perform activities which are correlated with varnashram, schools, charitable clinics, right? Even cow protection, goshalas, done with the incomplete mentality. These things are like social work. They, in and of themselves, are not pure bhakti. They may be aropa siddha bhakti. We may engage them and try to align them with the mood of bhakti, but in and of themselves, without direction of Sri Guru and without pure intent, as long as the intent is mixed, then they can't work. What to speak of these other things? Bhakti only comes from bhakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Bhakti comes from bhakti itself through association with pure sadhaks. And these other things, they are not on the level of Sri Nam. And we should always know that. Otherwise, we relegate Sri Nam to one of these kind of things and perform them in place of Sri Nam. Right? Number 9, to instruct the glories of the holy name to faithless persons who are averse to hearing and chanting is also Nam Aparadha. And to instruct the glories of the holy name in the wrong way, because Sri Nam is like a chintamani. It can award all things, right? The greatest gift of Sri Nam is, of course, pure bhakti. But Sri Nam chanted Namabhas or Nam Aparadha can also award materialistic benefits. And sometimes people preach, they think, I'll encourage somebody to chant Harinam by telling them they can get material benefits by that chanting. I've seen that even some devotees, in their, they do kirtan, they go out and, they do kirtan festivals, and they try to encourage people to chant Harinam, and they'll say something like that. Whatever you want, Sri Nam will give you. They're thinking that, now they'll chant, now they'll get benefit. But Sri Nam, chanted for those purposes, is Nam Aparadha. And those who preach in that way are also Aparadhis, right? So why preach to faithless persons, right? The pure devotee can do that because they can instill faith in anyone. Srila Prabhupada, in the very beginning, one time attended this, what was called the Rock Mantra Festival in San Francisco. I guess it was early '67. And at that time, this cultural and musical revolution was going on. San Francisco was one of the centers. And so many of the famous bands of that time were there. So this concert hall, this Avalon Ballroom, was filled with people who came to hear all these groups. But Srila Prabhupada himself went there. And he chanted the holy name, engaged people in kirtan, and of course the rock groups played along with it. And most people were responding to the rock and roll music, but they were getting the agyata sukriti of the pure devotee chanting the holy name, right? But ordinarily, that kind of activity in and of itself will not generate any real benefit. Because the people are chanting impurely with the wrong intent, and so they that kind of association, and also chanting with Mayavads and personalists. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in the Jaiva Dharma that one who is a Vaishnava should not engage in kirtan led by Mayavads or impersonalists. They can be in attendance if the kirtan is led by Shuddha Vaishnavas, Madhyamadikaris, and pure, and Uttamadikaris. and even Kanishta Adhikaris who have faith, right? But if the impersonalists and the materialists are leading the kirtan, then you should not be there. You should not be there. They can attend our program, but we should not attend their program. And sometimes you see devotees engage in playing backup. They play harmonium and drums for Mayavad Kirtaniyas. Gurudev one time, one of these persons came and attended one of Gurudev's programs and chanted, and Gurudev was singularly unimpressed and made it known. Right? So then, number 10, to those, in spite of hearing the astonishing glories of the holy name, maintain the conception that I am this material body and that worldly objects of sense gratification are mine, and who show no persistence in or love for the utterance of Sri Nam, are also Nam-aparadhis. So despite constant chanting, you're stubbornly attached to the material conception, making no endeavor to go beyond that, stubbornly attached to the pleasures and joys of the material body, and that kind of identification, that will check your bhakti. So we have to be aware of these things. And the difference is, in Jaiva Dharma, there's two states of mind that differentiate Nam-aparad and Nam-abhas. Nam-aparad is deliberate, callous, even malicious, misusing and chanting of the holy name, right? Conscious misuse. Nam-abhas is due to weakness, inattentiveness, right? And lack of knowledge, right? So if we're trying sincerely to overcome these, and yet some of these things come up in our heart, and yet we show conscious recognition and regret, then we're entering into Nam-abhas, and Nam-abhas will purify us. The only thing that really purifies Nam-aparad is constant chanting, good association, and conscious endeavor to overcome them. And then gradually Nam-aparad leaves, Nam-abhas replaces it. Nam-abhas is purifying. It won't give pure bhakti, but it will be the gateway. And then when Nam-aparad is gone, then gradually one pure name may come. And from that, so much is opened up. And then from that, another pure name, and another, and another. And one moves very quickly and strongly into Madhyam and the various gradations of growth in realization and love of God, right? Leading ultimately to Bhav. So, having reread all of these, I wanted to go back to something that Srila Prabhupada mentions in his Nectar of Instruction. Because in that book, because this particular verse of Srila Rupa Goswami is quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Bhajan Rahasya. Jisraisa bhava jani tar vapusas chadoshayar na prakritadvam iha bhakta janasya pashyat gangambasam na kalubud buddha pena pankayar brahmadravadvam apagachati neda dharmai. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganga, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganga waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganga without considering the condition of the water. And this verse addresses the point that generally these conditions, low family, bad complexion, leprosy, deformation of the body, disease, infirmity, right? These reflect or are due to prior impious activity. They're the result of bad karma, right? And so generally, a lot of people say that if you see these in somebody, then that person is lowborn. They're not qualified. They're not a spiritually advanced person. A spiritually advanced person is free from sin, right? But he's saying here that a pure devotee may be in such a body, may be in such a condition, or later on may become sick or ill, right, for whatever reason. And that one should never confuse that condition and end up criticizing that pure devotee. Pure devotee should never be criticized under any condition. Like the Ganga is always pure, but during the rainy season, so much is churned up, and along with the Ganga, you see mud, foam, bubbles, all of that. The Ganga is not affected by all that. That may be seen along with the Ganga, but the Ganga is still transcendental pure. And pure devotee, they may exhibit these qualities for many different reasons. Narottam Das Thakur, in his last days, exhibited sickness pastime, where he appeared to be paralyzed and greatly infirm. And in his village of Keturi, where he had converted practically the entire village, or city rather, and his cousin brother and that entire family, the kings, were also converted, all the merchants, but there were still some envious Smarta Brahmanas who objected to Narottam and could never reconcile the fact that he was of Kshatriya birth or Kayastha. I can't remember whether he was pure Kshatriya or mixed with Brahmin, but they said, how can he be qualified to initiate Brahmins? This is an offense, because in Varnashram, only Brahmins can initiate Brahmins, right? In that form of Varnashram, the Smarta. And so they criticized him, and they said, now, see, his infirmity is because of his sin. And his disciples were very distraught over that, and they had no way to argue that. So they went to Narottam and they told him this. And he said, what? They're saying that? And so he was lying infirm, and then all of a sudden he just got up and then said, come with me. And he began to go through the town and engage in energetic Harinam Sankirtan, singing, leading, dancing, all of this in front of everybody. And everybody saw this, said, what? And then after some hours, he went back and lay down again and exhibited sickness pastimes. Jagannath Das Babaji was 140 years old, maybe a little older, when he came to Navadvip, Mayapur, at the request of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to verify the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. He was so old that for decades he'd been carried in a basket by his disciple. What was his name? Come later. At any rate, and he looked, and his skin was so saggy and wrinkly that his folds, eyelids, and his forehead fell over his eyes. In order to see, he'd have to lift that up just to see. So many pastimes with him where he looked so infirm and old. And yet, when they brought him for the establishment of this holy place, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had brought all kinds of respectable persons, political persons, to that place in Navadvip, which we know is a yog pit. And then he brought Jagannath Das Babaji there to confirm it. When Jagannath Das Babaji was placed down in the basket, he immediately leaped out of the basket and said, oh, this is the birthplace of my Prabhu. And he began to leap and dance in the air and leap high into the air. And nobody could believe it. He went like from this in the basket, had barely moved for decades, and then jumping and leaping up and down in ecstasy. Because he wasn't constrained materially, right? Complete control of everything. But they accept these conditions to teach us. Like Srila Prabhupada in his last days also showed that, and he would speak to his disciples who were there, to all of, I wasn't there, but he's speaking to all of us, and he said, this condition you see me in, do not think it will not happen to you. See? Our acharyas teach that one who performs bhakti is completely free from all sinful activity, but you're not necessarily free from material difficulty. All of the Vaishnavas, look at what the Pandavas went through. They went through so much difficulties in the service of Krishna, but Srila Prabhupada explains beautifully in the 16th and 17th chapters of the first canto about how they accept that difficulty, and Krishna puts them in that to show the glories of the pure devotee, their undisturbed love, their tolerance, all of these qualities, right? And if you knew, what if you knew that, hey, by practicing bhakti, I won't have to get old, I won't have to get diseased, or even if I get old, it'll be pleasant, right? Then people are going to take to bhakti for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, let's do bhakti. Yeah, we can be strong and healthy and no problem. No, that's not the point. That's not the point. So, in the beginning of the purports, Srila Prabhupada is talking about who is a devotee, who is not, really emphasizing that birth has doesn't limit one's opportunity to become a great devotee and a Goswami, right? And then, in the latter part of the purport, I'm going to read that, because this also, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj read in New Braj in Badger, California, reading this verse, reading Srila Prabhupada's purport, and elaborated on this point, reading Srila Prabhupada's words, and then telling everyone, what does this really mean? You know, in your everyday conduct, you know, you have to take this seriously about not offending pure Vaishnavas. So he says, if we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Now, when we hear Vaishnava, you should understand, this is Vaishnava according to definition of Mahaprabhu. It's not an ecclesiastical title. Oh, a member of a particular institution, right? Oh, this group, that group. No, Vaishnavas are Krishnas, and they'll appear in many, many places. That was one of the specialities of Mahaprabhu. His eternal associates appeared in many different villages, some in Navadvip, some near Navadvip, some in distant places. And they appeared in all different statuses of society. Outside of Varnashram, Muslims like Haridas Thakur, within the society, but merchants, Kshatriyas, Kayastas, Shudras, all kinds of persons Mahaprabhu was showing. Even animals in the forest, right, were eligible for bhakti during the time of Mahaprabhu. So, an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create a disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. One should therefore be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnava. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava. And a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects, which is why Srila Prabhupada requested some of his dear associates, like Srila Narayana Maharaj, Srila Bhaktirak Sridhar Maharaj, to help his disciples, us, when he was gone. And he instructed his disciples to take instruction from them. Unfortunately, there was a sequence of events where this, you could say, hit a few bumps in the road. And this instruction was not taken in the proper mood. These young disciples thought themselves superior. And I heard conversations from some of them, very offensive to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, to Srila Narayan Maharaj, and to others. Because they thought themselves, oh, we are the true followers, the true Vaishnavas. Our Guru is the greatest of all, and since we're his followers, we are also great. Now, it's okay to think your Guru is the greatest of all. Every disciple thinks that, right? But that, if you really understand your Guru, you'll also appreciate, you'll have the vision to appreciate other Vaishnavas and your own position in relationship to them. And also it takes some maturity to reconcile apparent differences in the way different Vaishnavas instruct. But, as explained in Chaitanya Bhagavat and in the purports of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, pure devotees are never in conflict or disagree with one another, right? But they may describe things differently according to time, place, circumstance, right? So, every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava, and a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. And how is that measured? Mahaprabhu gave instructions how that's to be measured. After the Rath Yatra, for many years, every year, the inhabitants of Kulinagram would ask him, right? And he would give increasingly higher and higher instruction on who is a Vaishnava. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. And that can also mean institutional point of view. For the neophyte especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. That's what the internal features, qualities of that devotee. Not what mat, not what group, not what sangha. That's all external. How are they engaged in chanting of the holy name, in practicing the limbs of bhakti, in teaching others, right? How are they living? In this way, one can avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, and thus one can gradually become a purified devotee himself. Right? But if you don't, then you're committing aparadha and you won't become a purified devotee. Those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land, are generally prone to see the external features of the devotee. Right? Think about that. Certain section of people, certain section of devotees, certain tract of land. What are the implications of that? You know, oh, they're not Indian, right? Only Indians can know this. Only this section, only this group, right? No. Such neophytes, unable to appreciate the exalted service of the advanced devotee, try to bring the Mahabhagavat to their platform. Ooh, I heard some things. Oh my God. Anyway, no need. It's all in the past. We experience such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte godbrothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. Some of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers criticized him in that way, and he criticized back, right? Some of them were very appreciative. What the difficulty was, what his disciples got involved in the war, and that's not appropriate. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it says, if two devotees are engaged in an argument, great devotees, Mahabhagavats, don't take sides. If you take sides of one over the other, you're finished. Because Mahabhagavats are allowed to argue and even have differences of opinion about how bhakti should be performed and even preached. And they may argue very vehemently against one another about it. But a devotee, a disciple of one even, should just step back from that. They have different moods. Oh, I'm offering obeisance from a distance. I'm going to follow in the way my guru has taught, but I'm not going to criticize this person, right? Nor am I going to criticize even maybe some of the people that Srila Prabhupada is talking about here were not pure devotees. Maybe some were less developed. I'm not going to criticize them. They're the god brothers of my guru. I'll never criticize them. So, we very much regret their naive activities and poor fund of knowledge. An empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being. For it is stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Right? When one thus criticizes a pure devotee, he commits an offense, a Vaishnava Aparadha, that is very obstructive and dangerous for those who desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefit when he offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Ever and therefore should be very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or a Shuddha Vaishnava. It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. Right. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. I suggest we can't get into it here. We don't have time. But if you want to go into this conception deeper, read the book Essence of All Advice, which is Srila Narayan Maharaj's commentary on this verse. It's in there. And he goes into this. One can distinguish between a neophyte Vaishnava and an advanced Vaishnava by their activities. The advanced Vaishnava is always situated as the spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. Right. And yet, we in our position are always considering ourselves superior. We always have the tendency to criticize. Completely destructive. And to bring up this point, we brought up before, that when we're talking about the anarthas, it's one of the aparadhas is to create offense or to criticize. Even ordinary jivas should not be criticized, right? What to speak of Vaishnavas on the various level, because by doing that, one is nurturing a particular mentality, a particular mental condition, which is very unfavorable and which spills over into your bhakti, right? Criticizing other Vaishnavas who may be imperfectly performing their seva, but if they're trying their best, serving under the direction, the mission of Sri Guru, then why would you want to criticize, right? Don't criticize. You may not agree, don't criticize, right? Just do your own seva, right? Be happy in your own service. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instructions from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Srila Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. Very subtle, very nuanced. So I would advise reading that chapter, which is being described, Essence of All Advice. Srila Narayan Maharaj's commentary on Srila Prabhupada's commentary. Very interesting. So tomorrow we'll continue and we'll move on to the next verse in the Upadeshamrita. I just wanted to touch on that point because this relates to the first verse, the first aparad, nam aparad, right? Vaishnava Ninda, right? Never, 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 never. So tomorrow we'll start with verse 24. Okay, so having heard all that, we humbly offer our obeisance, praying for the protection of our beloved gurus unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitya Vishnu Om Vishnu Pada Stotarat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitya Vishnu Om Vishnu Pada Astotarat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj and all of our Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, all the glorious Vaishnavas all around the world engaged in the mission of Mahaprabhu, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.